Today I'm going to show you how to make this pop-up Omnitrix from Ben 10 Alien Force.
Just like last time, there's no painting required and no sanding. It's easy!
The first step to making this Omnitrix is to go download the digital files because we're going to be 3D printing this. Once again, I'm going to be using Bamboo Lab printers because of how reliable and fast they are, as well as the fact that they can print in multiple different colors. But you can use any 3D printer that you like. As for the Omnitrix files themselves, I'm going to be using this amazing kit designed by K.A.CosplayTech. The link to purchase these files is linked down below if you guys once again want to follow along with me. When you first download the Omnitrix files, you'll see 3 folders. One folder of parts that require supports when printed, one folder of parts that don't require supports when printed, and one folder of pre-supported parts that have been cleverly designed for optimal supports, like these buttons that are on runners. You'll also see a manual that I'll go over shortly, and a 3MF file. The 3MF file is kind of like a preset. You can drag and drop this file into your slicer, and all of the parts will already be neatly organized and painted. So all you have to do is click slice and print, and add supports if you like. But I'm gonna add each of the parts individually myself, so I can show you guys how to paint them in the slicer. Pause. You might be asking yourself, what the hell is a slicer? A slicer refers to a program like Orca Slicer or Cura, which takes your 3D model and slices it up into tiny little layer lines called G-code, which are basically little instructions that you can then send to your printer so it can rebuild your model one layer at a time until you have your 3D model in real life. Back to painting these parts. First, I'm gonna add the files that don't need supports. And I'm gonna add all of the parts that I can get away with printing in just one color. First, I'm gonna open up Orca Slicer, which is my favorite slicer. Then I'm gonna add the knob and I'm gonna clone it because we need 2. The catch and clone it, the dial.
Almost forgot the subface.
And the pre-supported buttons on the runners. I'm then gonna slice them and send them to my printer and print them in silver PLA. Now, while these are printing, I'm gonna show you how to do some painting on our next part. Drag the lid and base piece from the no support needed folder into your slicer. Now, click on the piece that you want to paint and use the color painting feature with the fill option to color parts of the model. Make sure you have the correct colored rolls in your automatic filament system and that they're recognized by your slicer. You can also adjust the smart fill angle if you're not happy with the selection it's giving you. Once you're happy with your digital paint job, send them off to your printer to bring them into the real world. Now do the exact same thing for the faceplate and band base piece. Now, for the parts that need supports, you can either choose to do this yourself with the slicer or just use the pre-support folder. I'm gonna use the pre-supported folder. We need to add and paint the band link support piece. I'm gonna use the height range tool to paint these pieces because there's no seams in the model for us to use. When you're done painting, clone as many band links as you need to fit your wrist. I'm gonna print 6, but you may need more or less depending on your own wrist size. I'm also gonna add the clasp band and cover and paint them before I print this batch. And I'll send them off to my printer. All that's left now is the core, and this is easy to paint with the fill tool.
Lord Vilgax, we've intercepted a strange broadcast from Earth. It's a tutorial about constructing an Omnitrix.
An Omnitrix? Show me.
Today I'm going to show you how to make this pop-up Omnitrix from Ben 10 Alien Force.
Interesting. If I cannot take the Omnitrix by force, perhaps I can create my own. Prepare the 3D printer I confiscated from the Calvin outposts.
At once, Lord Vilgax.
Okay, all the parts of our Omnitrix are printed and it's now time to begin assembly. But before diving into the process, we need to order a few additional components for the pop-up mechanism. Fortunately, the manual provides a convenient direct link to purchase all of the products, which I think are reasonably priced. Once these additional components arrive, we're ready to assemble the Omnitrix. Let's do it.
Let's do this.
The first step is to install the heat inserts into the faceplate, subface, and lid pieces. The way you do this is by inserting the M2 inserts into their slots and taking a hot soldering iron to melt them into the plastic. Try not to rush this and push too hard, or you could warp the plastic. And make sure that they're nice and flush with the surface. This will ensure a solid fit later on. Now let's move on to assembling the face. Take the subface and line it up with the faceplate. Once it's aligned, secure the two pieces together using M2x6 screws. And that's your face piece done. Next, grab the core or column as it's labeled, line up the face, dial, lid, and column or core. Once everything's lined up, insert the screws through the bottom of the column into the face. This will lock the lid and dial into place. Before we move on, double check that everything is lined up correctly. If it feels rough or gets stuck, you might need to adjust or reprint a part. Alright, time for the buttons. If you're using pre-supported buttons, you'll first need to cut them out of their runners and trim off the excess. Start by attaching the small springs to the pins on both buttons. Instead of pushing them on, you're supposed to screw them on gently to avoid pre-tensioning the springs, but my fingers are too fat. Now let's prepare the base by installing the heat inserts at the bottom. And just like before, make sure they're flush and securely in place. Also, be careful not to bump your soldering iron onto other parts of the model like I did. Now that that's done, you can install the buttons into the base. There's a small catch built into the base to help guide the buttons. If you're having trouble, try inserting the springs at a slight angle first and then pressing the button into place. With the inserts in, it's time to place the main spring, knobs, and catches into their spots on the base. These parts don't need to be secured just yet. The top assembly will hold them in place when we sandwich it together. Now take the top and bottom pieces and line them up. The column should naturally spring up when everything's pushed together. Sandwich them together and hold tight while using the M2x8 screws to attach the top assembly to the base. Make sure the core's guides are sitting in their channels before tightening everything down. Once assembled, test the pop-up mechanism to ensure it's working smoothly.
Curse you! These Earthlings made it look easy. Why would it make an Omnitrix? It's not doing anything.
May I suggest referring to the tutorial again?
You've now completed the main part. Let's move on to the band. Secure the band base pieces to the bottom of the assembly using M2x5 screws. This will serve as a foundation for the band links. Now, take a regular piece of 1.75mm filament and cut a piece off. Slide it through the band base and the first link. You can then trim the excess filament so it's flush with the holes. Repeat this process for additional links. Usually 3 links on each side plus the clasps work well, but you can adjust based on your wrist size if you need more or less. Like I said before, I use 6. If the filament feels too loose, you can add some glue to the hole to secure it. And if it's too tight, use a drill bit to enlarge the hole slightly so that the filament will fit in. For the clasps, you're supposed to glue 2 magnets into their slots, but I used Velcro instead. You can decide for yourself what you want to do. And there you have it, your pop-up Omnitrix is complete. Go out there and turn into some aliens. Click the video on the screen if you want to learn how to make a race against time Omnitrix.